Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Ridley, and this is my kitchen, how I found it. We're going to be making our next stop in Lebanon today with the national dish of Lebanon, kibbeh. This is actually a really fun dish. Originally, it came from the ancient area of Mesopotamia, and it's a mixture of bulgur wheat and spiced meat that was originally formed into almost like a ball or a dumpling. So kibbeh means ball. And it was fried into these almost like dumpling wonton type baked goods, which were super, super rich and super filling, and an easy way to mix grains and meat for early cooks. This one is an evolution of that. So instead of making these little individual dumplings or bundles, we're going to be doing what's called Baked Kibbeh, which is a transition into a almost casserole style dish. So we're going to be doing layers of the kibbeh mixture with some of the spiced beef and everything, and making almost like a baklava or lasagna type layered dish with some really interesting flavors. So I'm very, very excited to try it because it sounds like it's going to be very tasty, very savory, a little bit of warmth in there from some cinnamon and stuff. But let's get into the ingredients, and we'll just kind of walk through the 3 stages of the dish, and then I guess we'll get into some prep work. So to begin with, the actual kibbeh itself is going to be a fairly basic mixture. Now, the main ingredient is going to be a lean meat, and it can either be lean ground beef or lean lamb. In this case, I'm using both. The lamb is going to be for the kibbeh mixture, and I'm going to be using beef for the filling. So we're going to do a little bit of both. So this right here, it's got our lamb, a little bit of the bulgur wheat that I was talking about earlier. So this is wheat berries that have been partially cooked and cracked already. Because of that, you don't need to cook them, and they're a very important part for adding structure and texture to dishes. We've also got a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt, and then a bit of this mixture here, which is called baharat. It means spice in, I think, Arabic, but it is a mixture of 7 spices, very similar to, say, garam masala or any other spice blend from other areas, but this is going to be very unique to the Levantine region. A little bit of some pine nuts. Those are mostly going to be for garnish on the top, but are going to be really tasty as well. And then mixed into this is this whole fascinating slew of spices and herbs, which is called a kamula, I believe. I'll have to double check the name of it, but it is a blend of that 7 spice mixture, a little bit of some more savory spices. So I've got some marjoram here. You can maybe use herbe de Provence, a little bit of salt, some fresh mint, a little bit of chili pepper. In this case, I'm using a long pepper, which is going to be kind of citrusy and a little floral, but another option if you want more spice is to use, say, a serrano or a habanero. We're going to use a little bit of some bell pepper, some more of that bulgur wheat, and some onion, and all of this is going to get blended together into this spice mixture, which will then be mixed into the meat to make that kibbeh mixture. And then lastly, in the center of all of that, we're going to be making a filling with the ground beef, a little more onion, some more of the baharat, some pepper and salt, and then some more pine nuts, this time for flavor. I've got a little bit of oil, which we're going to use to cook those together in, and then that is going to be the actual kibbeh. A few of the recipes that I ran into also recommended serving it with a yogurt sauce, so we're going to be doing that just on the side. This is super, super simple. It is just yogurt, a little bit of salt, some garlic, and a spice. Mint, and a little bit of dried mint. I had fresh mint and dried mint, and it confused me. All right, so that is all the ingredients, and mostly what we're going to be doing is just processing a couple of the vegetables down into some minced and chopped versions. We're going to be cutting out some of the bell pepper because we only need to use a small piece of this. But let me do some quick reset, and then we'll come back and get everything cut up. And then once it's all cut, it's going to be a quick trip over to the stove to finish cooking. The prep work for this is actually pretty straightforward. So the first thing that we're going to do is we need to rehydrate a little bit of our bulgur wheat that we have. So we're just going to put that in a bowl, and we're going to pour a little bit of hot water over the top. Now, the different recipes that I found say that you can use hot water or cold water, but hot water you want to let it sit for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Cold water, you might want to let it sit for closer to half an hour. The important part of this is just to allow it to kind of rehydrate and soften the bulgur wheat a little bit. So I'll set that off to the side while we work on the rest of the prep. Now, the rest of the prep is also fairly straightforward. The biggest thing we want to do is to prep our kamune first. And so for that, we're just going to take some of these ingredients. So like I was saying, we're going to cut some of these down. We're only going to use half of the onion, and we're only going to use maybe half to a third of the red bell pepper. But they need to be completely minced, so there's a couple of ways that you can go about this. What I'm going to be doing is just throwing them into a food processor or a blender and blending them until smooth. But if you don't have one of those, a really easy way to handle onions in that manner is to run them through a box grater, and that'll actually give you a really nice, almost onion puree out of it, which is super simple. So we're just going to chop this up into some smaller pieces and directly into our little blender cup here. Exactly the same thing with our bell pepper. I'm just going to cut off a chunk of it, break it down a tiny bit, and toss it into the blender. Same thing with the long pepper. This time we're just going to throw the whole thing in there, although a couple of pieces. All of our fresh mint. And those spices from earlier. And then all of this is going to get ground up and then mixed with that last cup of the bulgur wheat. So the next time you see those, it's just going to be a big flurry of stuff. The next thing that we need to do is start preparing the filling, and for that, the last prep step is just going to be finely chopping an onion. You can do chopping or dicing. I just think probably not as fine as the mince that we were using for the other step. The mince in the blender there is more to act as a binder to help hold all the meat together, whereas this one is there for a little bit of texture and of course the onion flavor. And then same thing, if you don't want to have to deal with this part of the prep, a lot of these ingredients you can actually purchase pre-prepped. So I know that I've seen diced onions in the store before. So if you want to skip a couple of stages here, should be fairly simple to do. I found the Baharat spice in my local supermarket. That blend in particular, if you look online, every single recipe is going to be very different. So you can just go pick one up yourself or make it. Doesn't really particularly matter. And then I am just going to set these in a bowl off to the side for now, because once we get this finished chopping, that is the entirety of our prep work for this recipe. So I love recipes where you don't have to do a whole lot of pre-prep, and mostly it's just grab the ingredients and get cooking. All right, so that is the entirety of our prep. So let me move everything back over to the stove now. And from here, it's just going to be mixing these all together as we slowly cook them. We're eventually going to be building a casserole out of them, throwing it in the oven, and that's going to be the final step. But see you back in the stove in a second. Okay, so we're going to start off by just doing a little bit of some frying in the pan here. So we're going to do a little bit of our oil, get this preheating. Just going to do maybe medium heat on it. And then once that comes to temperature, we're just going to do a few quick things. So the first one is we want to toast these pine nuts. So I'm going to put them in for a few minutes, toast them until they're golden brown, but then we're going to pull them out again. After that's done, we're gonna actually start in with the cooking. So we're gonna add the ground beef in, brown that up really nicely. We're gonna add our onions in so that we have those cooking down as well. And then we're gonna have the spice go in with them. Towards the end, I think we're adding the pine nuts back in. I'll double check that, but yeah, just going to be a couple really quick, easy frying steps here. So I'm gonna let this heat up some, and what we're gonna look for is for these to be just kind of a light golden brown. You don't want any burning on these at all. But you also should be pretty easy to do that because this is from a cold pan and we're not doing any ripping hot oil or anything. Ooh, yes, definitely got a nice toasted aroma to them, and we're getting a little bit of color here, so I think it's about time we pull these off. So these we're just gonna set aside for now. I know. Trying to keep as much of the oil in here as possible because we are gonna go straight from this into browning the ground beef. So I want to try and keep that heat there, some of the flavor from the toasted nuts, but also make sure that they don't get burned in the process. All right, so we've got that there. Ground beef goes in. I'm gonna break this up. And then we're just gonna let this brown for about 4 or 5 minutes and get it nice and fully colored. Beef looks pretty well browned, so we're now just going to add in our onions, stir these in, and give them a few minutes of their own to cook down. And in this case, we're looking for the translucency. So this will probably be maybe 3 or 4 minutes, but just enough to soften those onions down and infuse their flavor into the beef. And then on this, we are also going to be adding back in the pine nuts. Along with our spices. So salt, pepper, and some of the baharat. Give these a little mix. And then just let the flavors meld and the onions soften up a bit. And then once this is done cooking, maybe, like I said, 3 or 4 minutes more, all we're gonna do is just turn the heat off and let it cool down because we're gonna need to handle this in a few minutes. So while that's cooling, we're gonna work on building up the rest of the kibbeh mix to go on top and bottom of it. Beautiful. All right, so the onions have softened. They've got that translucency to them. All of the meat is browned. The pine nuts, none of them have burned, but they've still got that nice golden color to them. So we're gonna turn this off and then just let that cool down for a little bit while we work on the next step, which conveniently we can do right away. So for this one, we're gonna take the bulgur wheat that we had in the hot water earlier. And if you noticed, it's actually absorbed it all and almost become almost like a dough. But so we're gonna put this in here. And then onto that, we are going to add our ground lamb. There we go. And we're gonna have our baharat and salt, add that in there as well. And then our kamuna that we made earlier. So this is everything that we had there thrown into the blender and just mixed thoroughly into this spice mixture. So now, very similar to how you would do like a meatloaf, what we want to do here is mix everything in by hand and just make sure that it's completely homogenized. But you also don't want to like run this through a blender or anything and make a paste out of it. So you want it to be mixed but still have good texture. And in this instance, some of the recipes I found have even said that once this is done, you can pull it out and throw it into a food processor for a quick blitz to get everything thoroughly mixed. But in this case, because I've got everything pretty well mixed already, I think I'm going to be able to get it all mixed by hand. So we're going to just spend a few minutes thoroughly incorporating all of this together, breaking up the chunks of the kamuna, and making sure that all the flavors get everywhere. So, take as long as you need to get everything nice and mixed, but don't go too far and make a smoothie out of it. Okay, we have our thoroughly mixed lamb mixture here. And then we have our cooled off kibbeh or filling mixture here. And so the next step is to actually build this whole dish. So I am going to take our mixture here and just kind of roughly cut it in half. And then we're going to use this and just completely cover the bottom of, oh, you want to grease this first. All right. That is an important step if I want to get this out of here later, I'm assuming. Okay, so now we're going to take half of this and we're going to press it into the bottom and just make a completely even layer of our kibbeh mixture on the bottom of our pan here. Then we're going to take the filling and we're going to spoon that directly over the top of this. So that's going to go in the center, and then we will take the other half of the kibbeh filling, put that over the top, essentially encasing all of the beef mixture in this lamb dough mix sort of thing. So, seeing as I am already manually handling everything here, might as well get my hands all dirty all at once. All right. So the beef mixture in the middle. Now, the reason that I chose the beef for the filling and the lamb for the outside is because the beef that I'm using here is actually a little bit higher fat content. And so I wanted that to be in the center to add a little bit more moisture and everything to the finished dish. But technically, you would want to use a lean meat for both sides. And in the traditional version, this would then be fried in oil. So there would be an additional oil added to it. All right, so now that we've got there, we're just going to be taking bits of our kibbeh mixture here, flattening it out, and layering over the top. And we're going to keep doing this until the entire top is covered and we've encased all of the lamb or the beef mixture inside the lamb. A little squished. Now, one of the recipes that I was reading through specifically said to do it this way, where you kind of form some patties with it and then lay them on top. I think you could probably, if you really wanted to, set down, say, some parchment paper, roll it out into a smooth, even circle, and then layer it, nice, layer it over the top instead of doing this bit by bit. But I think that given this is just trying it out, I'm going to do it the traditional way and hand shape this top bit. Once everything is covered, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of water to my hands and just try to smooth the surface out so that we've got one nice kind of casserole layer. Alright, just filling in a couple little gaps. I really don't know what I'm doing, but that's okay. All right. And then the little bit of water there actually did seem to help to kind of allow them to fuse together better. So I understand why that's on there. It also is helping it to not stick to my hands. Definitely, I can see how the water would be very, very important if you were trying to shape these into the balls. So normally, the traditional kibbeh recipe would have this outer lamb be a shell around the beef filling, and that would be kind of a single handheld bite-sized snack. This is the larger casserole style of that. Okay. We seem to have a fairly smooth layer. We've encased all of our ground beef. And then our last thing that we need to do is set the oven to 375 and let that preheat. And then once that's preheated, I believe we just put this in for about an hour, maybe a little bit less. But once that is done, you have got your baked kibbeh. So let me just make sure that this is all nice and smooth, that I feel happy with our packing job. And then we will get it in the oven. All right. Now, the very last thing that we'll want to do before we actually get it into the oven is we're going to take a sharp knife and we are going to put some slices in this. And I'm going to try my best to replicate a design that I saw that I think is sort of a traditional one. So it looked like we went across one way, across on the X, and then across again on the diagonals. And then, it was, I think, here, here. Continue the design on this side. And from my understanding, the main purpose of this is that when we're done, this will help to shape the pieces coming out of it, so that you'll actually have sort of specific preset serving sizes. It's here, and here. Think that's fairly reminiscent of what I was seeing. So you can see here that we've got these sort of triangular pieces that when we're done, we'll be able to pull those out and be individual servings. I'm not entirely sure if that's quite the design that we were going for, but it's nice looking. I'm going to do a little drizzle of oil just over the top here. Trying to not get too much pooling anywhere specifically. A couple of tablespoons of oil on the top. Whole thing goes in the oven, just about center. And then I'm gonna set it for 50 minutes for now. We'll check it at that point and then see if it needs to go a little bit longer from there. But once it's done, you should be good to eat. You just wanna make sure that the internal temperature has reached the proper doneness for the level of ground beef or lamb that you are comfortable with. I think 165 is the standard. All right, so I almost missed something very important, which is, remember earlier when there were those pine nuts that were supposed to be for garnish on the top? They're supposed to be on it right now so they can toast up in the oven with it. So I'm just gonna pull this out real quick. It's only been a couple of minutes. I'm gonna sprinkle our pine nuts over the top. And back in the oven. You can do that all at one point and it'd be totally fine. All right, so our kibbeh is done baking and it looks and smells spectacular. So we've got a little bit of browning on it, which is exactly what we want. It's incredibly fragrant and it looks delightful. All right, so this is our baked kibbeh. I'm just going to plate some up, take it back over to the table, and then it's time for tastings with Bruce. All right, so this smells amazing. Sorry, it scents amazing. I am very excited.
It looks delicious. It's meat within meat. I mean, you can't really go wrong here, so...
We made a meat dough to encase the meat, you're right.
Yeah. Let's give it a shot here.
All right, so
I'm gonna try it without the sauce first.
Yes, and then try it with the sauce,
Yeah.
I think.
Here we go. This is an interesting crust. There we go.
Oh, the pine nuts are a very interesting experience.
I didn't even get any in that one. It's really good, though.
It's really good.
Wow,
It's warming.
And the spices just keep going.
There's a little bit of sweetness in there. The pine nuts add kind of a nuttiness. They're not crunchy, but they add texture.
Yeah, they do. And not in an annoying way, which I like. All right, let's try it with the sauce. This is hard to get into. Just gotta break it first.
I can see why it would be handy to have this in a handheld, one and done. Ooh. Ooh.
Does it add more? Adds good. Let's try it. Here we go.
Oh.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Okay, got it. Here we go.
Oh. It transforms it.
Wow. That's fascinating. The spices in there really pop out after the initial cream hit. It's crazy.
And the mint, that tiny touch of mint.
I just got the mint there. Really good. This is a really good dish.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
Crap.
And there's also a definite different texture between the, like, outer layers and that inner beef filling. And it's important to get them both in the bite together.
Texture-wise, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the point was to not eat this with a fork. I think we were still supposed to use our hands.
You know what? I'd be fine with that, but...
Because it's like breaking apart trying to use this, but I feel like if I were to hold it, it would have kept it all together. So, but we're here now, so forget it.
Wow.
This sauce is really good.
And again, it's hard for me to describe because it's not like anything I've had before.
No, but
I could like try and pull parallels, but it's me grabbing a flavor that's like, oh, I've also had lamb in another dish. I also have tasted pepper before. Like,
That's not gonna prepare you for this. Wow. But if you've ever had good food before, this is good food.
it's on the list.
This is good food.
Oh man! All right, well,
I like
this is a great way to tie off Lebanon, I think.
Oh yeah. Wow.
It's another one where it just keeps going.
It does. The spices, they just go on and on. Yeah, I have no notes. This thing is delicious. I could have this for any meal.
And honestly, I could see this being amazing at like a party where you prepare a bunch of the handheld ones, a grab-and-go food. Holy cow. Have some of this as a dipping sauce on the side.
They might already be a grab and go thing. We just didn't do that. We just kind of smashed it.
It's true.
So, but whatever, you know, that's fine. It's still delicious. Yeah, well, I guess we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. And give this a try. See you next time.